Welcome to Next Time Around, brought to you by Powerverse, the podcast where we take on the big questions of the green transition and explore how the world is changing for a cleaner, brighter future. We're your hosts, Lauren Forster
and Richard Britton,
and we'll be diving into the tech, the policies and the big ideas that are reshaping industries and people's lives. Whether it's cutting-edge technology or shifting priorities, we're here to figure out what it all means for you and the world that we're building for tomorrow. So get ready as we take a fresh look at how changes today are laying the groundwork for a better next time around. On this week's episode of Next Time Around, our guest is not only an entrepreneur and founder of a multi-award-winning recruitment company, Harper Fox Partners, but also a finalist of the well-known BBC show The Apprentice and business partner to Lord Alan Sugar. We'll be discussing sustainable working and how recruitment in the energy and technology space is changing with the increased focus on renewables. Welcome, Scarlett Allen-Horton. So thanks for joining us on Next Time Around, Scarlett. It's great to have you here.
It's amazing to be here. Thank you very much. Thank you both.
We're really excited to hear all about Harper Fox Partners and sustainable working. So would you be able to talk us through your background and what you've done in your career so far?
So founded Harper Fox Partners 7 years ago, very much focused on ED&I actually, but there's a beautiful correlation between ED&I and sustainability and innovation. I just like to put that out there. And really, really focused for us is on placing senior females, ethnic minorities, just amazing talent at the top of STEM organisations. That's what we're very well known for. Multi-award winning, 3 sites now, received investment 4 years ago from Lord Sugar and looking at continued expansion across the sustainability green energy fields. So exciting times.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Lots of amazing progress in the last few years, so good job. I suppose the first thing I'd like to ask you about is what made you pick energy as a sector that you wanted to focus on in your business?
I'll be completely transparent. So we've come from engineering backgrounds. So we were in automotive, aerospace industries. I came into the world of recruitment when I was 25, started to understand that these sectors existed. I didn't even know that they did. Don't mean to sound naive, but I was just like, for the first bit, I was like, what is even manufacturing? Are they talking about factories? Like literally that naive to the world of STEM. Touched on energy, but what I noticed was that the automotive sector was going more and more green, obviously, and we were starting to talk about EV and electric vehicles and battery. So we were starting to see it from an engineering perspective. We did a little bit in energy, and then the pandemic hit. And those sectors were massively impacted. And actually, there's still big impacts now. And I was saying to you earlier, Richard, 90% of our business just went on hold, literally overnight. So I was like, oh my gosh, obviously I've got a team to support. We've got targets. I've got 2 children. I was like, oh my goodness. So I thought, right, we need to pivot and we need to pivot really, really quickly. So we pivoted to energy because we'd already started to do a little bit within the sector and into tech. And then we've gone more into energy, green tech, grids, renewables, and we have continued in that now for the last near 5 years and absolutely loved it. And now that's our absolute core market. So I'm very grateful. Yeah, very grateful that happened. And then, we really kind of pushed across different locations, the UK, US, Europe, again, to really diversify our portfolio. But the more I've understood energy, the more I've understood the massive impact, the people, and how much of an impact you can have literally on the world, it wouldn't go back. I'm really keen to continue to move forwards within the sector, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it is in those hard times where you are up against the wall that you really come out with really good ideas.
Yeah.
And see new opportunities that you can explore. And obviously renewables and tech is a growing area. So that's fantastic.
And loved it as well. Most importantly.
You were saying earlier how much you enjoy working with the people in
Love
energy.
it. Yeah. Brilliant people. And I think as we're seeing this transition, and I won't jump ahead, but as we're seeing kind of the transition, we're obviously seeing different people being brought in from different sectors now because we don't have all the skill sets in this sector for some of the new tech that's kind of coming out and some of the new innovation. And that's been really helpful for probably from our engineering backgrounds as well, to be honest with you. So it's been a really beautiful combination.
That's incredible. And over the last 3 years, how have you seen the landscape has changed and those skills that are needed are evolving?
Massively. We've been doing some work recently on what are the gaps, what are the sort of skills that we're being asked about that we weren't before. So, of course, more of the electrical EV side of things, but now we're looking at things like circular energy specialists. So how do we reuse? How do we recycle the product? Obviously more into kind of the tech space. We're looking at grid modernisation, carbon capture. And to be honest with you, there's some specialists in these areas, but there's not that many specialists because we haven't needed it before.
A lot of this is being invented for the first time, isn't it?
And that's so exciting, I think, for the industry. And it's so exciting for people within the industry and outside of our industry, to be honest with you, to come in. But yeah, we're seeing some big, big changes happening for sure.
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
My background's software, but also telecoms and media, and not energy. And yet many of the parallels of the disruption and transformation that happened in that sector 15 years ago is now playing out in energy as well. So I'm sure as you bring more of those people in, that kind of creativity of other ideas from other spaces and other places will make all these things happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I think it all adds to the excitement, no?
Absolutely. So Scarlett, you've talked a bit about how there have been changes in the types of needs within the sector. And maybe you could talk a little bit more about what you're seeing happening at a grid level, because obviously electrification is putting huge demands on the grid. Yeah,
massive demands on the grid. I think a couple of things. We've been asked recently quite a lot about cybersecurity and threats to the grid. So that's been really interesting. You know, that's a space that we haven't properly explored before. It's kind of a new entry point, I think, to our sector as well. So definitely seeing a need there. And then, of course, the big piece is the AI piece. You know, and we're seeing the tools, much like yours, in terms of how do we input smart home technology? How do we input that within businesses as well? And we are being asked about that actively as well. There's interest there, not only just from businesses, but even from candidates we're speaking to. And they're asking us, well, what things are you seeing? What trends are you seeing in the market? What's it going to look like in X amount of time? You know, we're asked those questions all the time.
Fascinating.
So very fascinating and very interesting, because there's obviously a great parallel with exactly what you're doing.
Absolutely.
So exciting.
Yeah, a lot of growth in the sector.
Yeah, lots of growth.
And are you seeing the traditional energy roles are being adapted to kind of fulfill these new requirements needed for these roles in the AI space?
Definitely. And they're having to be. I think that's the reality. We all know we're in, you know, what we've got this now, 2050, obviously green emissions target, and it's how do we do it? And I think we're all asking, how do we do it? Because we also have to be realistic, and I know this isn't always maybe talked about, but the reality is that we're still heavily reliant upon fossil fuels. I think coal might have even grown last year. That's a reality. And that's because there's so much development and so much opportunity still within the renewables and the clean energy space, and it's the how. So yes, definitely seeing traditional roles adapt and change and really look at the innovative side. And I think we're really seeing within these energy businesses, you know, the launch of the intrapreneur. It's how do we do this? How do we make that happen? How can we push things like we've never pushed things forwards before? And we haven't got necessarily people in industry that are doing that how. And we're seeing a lot more, I've seen anyway, a lot more cross-communication, you know, where there would have been, I think, businesses that perhaps have got their arms around their offering and what's happening. Actually, people are collaborating more, trying to understand more, partnering more to really drive industry forwards, because there is a common goal there, and it's exciting to see.
That's a great point to make about the collaboration part, because actually there's so much skill and innovation out there in a variety of different businesses that actually partnering together can really drive the best product forward.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's needed. I think that's testimony to perhaps how the working culture is changing as well, the way we lead people, the way we come together, the way we collaborate. I think that's testimony to the more modernised business culture and work culture as well.
So Scarlett, we've already touched on the climate goals for 2050. How do you think the big energy retailers are gearing up to sort of succeed in that space, and what are they needing to change, or maybe what else needs to change to make that happen?
Yeah, I think that's, I was going to say $1 million question, but maybe the $1 billion question.
The big one.
It's a big question. And interesting, we work with a lot of the big players within this space. So we're privy, I guess, to these kind of conversations. I think there's a big driver on talent. So that is a big element. I hear that. Some of the gaps that we've already talked about are what are being discussed. Of course, there's a big drive on innovation. I think there's some leaning on the government, potentially. And I know, again, it's a little bit controversial, but around funding and how, and kind of the R&D side, are we actually going to make this happen? So I think there's definitely a piece and conversations that are being had there around policy as well. And actually, what I've seen as part of a lot of these big player strategies is an M&A activity. There's no doubt about it. That's a big part of it. I think they're actually relying on some of the smaller businesses, the very kind of green, innovative tech businesses, actually to really formulate some solutions as well and for them to buy them out. That's the conversations that are being had, and they're aware of that.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because what you're talking about there is buying a team, but also a culture and a different way of doing things, maybe that can work faster and can be agile and can bring some different values into those companies.
And we've seen both, because we've seen some of the big players spin out, renewable businesses. So we've seen that with funding, but in a very semi-type environment, and buy some tech and really innovate that. So we've seen that. But then we're absolutely seeing the M&A piece as well. And I think that's a big part of their strategy, to be honest. So it's an exciting time, actually, for those innovative startup businesses. The opportunity is definitely there with the big players. They're open to those conversations as well. They know, and this goes back to the collaboration, to hit the targets we need. We know there's going to be collaboration that's needed as well. There's no doubt about it.
And are you finding a shift in the talent, the people that you're placing into these businesses in terms of their attitude towards going to big utilities, which would have traditionally been seen as quite sleepy, possibly?
Yeah, definitely. I think number one, there's a business opportunity, but number two, there's a backing opportunity that's needed as well. It costs money, doesn't it, to innovate this technology, to get the right people into the business. That's a reality. So yes, and a positive one at that.
It's the classic kind of buy versus build. Do these companies build it all themselves, or do they find the people that have done it for them? Yeah,
agreed. And I think the age of connection is here, right? We're seeing all this AI stuff. I'm seeing it in my own industry as well. And there's an interesting stat within our own industry, and recent stat, 83% of businesses have said no, they'd much rather that human-to-human interaction, which I think will be, I'm sure, reflective of most industries. We will see. But there is an age of connection that's needed, and I think that's what we're seeing in business as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting. We're more connected than ever before, and that really opens up opportunities and encourages different ways of thinking within people and industries. Can you tell us how you are seeing recruitment strategies being influenced by this new software and technology?
That's a big question.
It is quite a big one.
That's a big question. I'm always going to go back to a people perspective, because the businesses are made of their people. That's the reality. As great as the product is, and there's a place for that, but the reality is it's the people that build the business. I'm always going to have that standpoint anyway. You might have different.
I think I agree with you completely.
Yeah. Good. And for me, I think, we're back in this place of connection. We're back in this place of innovation. And I have to bring ED&I into it, and I have to bring diversity into it. I've been operating in this space. I know that a diverse team, on average, adds 39% to the bottom line of a business. So it increases employee engagement, it increases happier people basically in the business. People are happier. So everybody's happy, right?
Can I add a point to that?
Please.
Yeah, certainly in my experience, it also adds to one other thing you talked about earlier. You were talking about creativity, bringing in people from different industries. Actually, just people with different experiences unleashes the creativity as well. Do you think?
That's the biggest point, I would say. And that goes perfectly onto the point that I was going to say, which was around the innovation. And the truth is, we've got diverse teams, we've got people from different backgrounds, having different perspectives, different industries, different career journeys. We're not necessarily just always talking about gender, ethnicity. We're talking about different life experiences. And in doing that, we can cater to our consumers much better, because that's our reality, because everyone can bring these realities to the table. But actually, the creativity is so much higher. The problem solving is so much higher, and that is what we need within this space. We're in a space that's unprecedented at the moment. It's never been done before. We're trying to work out how to do it. So actually the diversity of perspective and thinking is exactly what's needed to solve the problem. And that's why I'm so passionate about bringing the two areas together, because I can see how they collaborate so beautifully. What is the point of sitting there and everyone says, yeah, I sit in, with my own team and I want to be challenged in that meeting. If not, I'm concerned that I've not quite got the right team dynamic going on, or the right team in the right way. Don't get me wrong, but we want to challenge each other, because that's how we bring the best outcome. That's how we push things further forward. So yeah, really passionate about the creativity piece.
Yeah. It seems to me that sort of the talent landscape's changed a lot in the last few years. We've talked a lot about what's happening in the energy sector and solving the climate crisis, but also COVID changed the way everyone works as well, and where you find talent and how do you keep that talent engaged, maybe in a different style of working and hybrid and so on. I'm really interested in your thoughts on all of this, Scarlett, and sort of what's happening in the sector with talent and how we acquire and keep and do it in a sustainable way that works for everyone.
I love that question. Okay, so First and foremost, I'm of course a big advocate of flexible working and hybrid working because I want to see more women at the top of boards. That's the reality, right? And I say that because women generally have 78% of the main caretaking duties. So I've been passionate about that pre-pandemic. So let's get that out there. And I think that's a really, really positive change that we're seeing. So first and foremost, I think around sustainable hiring practices, I actually think it's a culture piece. So I think there's a few things to that. So culturally, I mean, look, Powerverse clearly is a state-of-the-art renewables business, renewables green tech business. So that's brilliant. That's not everyone's reality though. So it's as a culture, how does the business shout about the things that they're doing to attract talent? And that's really important. So whether that's through your CSR activities, I mean, for us, we've just partnered with Seedling. We're a carbon neutral business. That's took a lot of work to get to that point, but we're carbon neutral because how can I come to you, Richard and Lauren, and say, right, we want to hire for your business? Well, you're going to, I imagine, look at your supply chain and think, well, aside from the results, how does this make us a more sustainable business? And that's key. And I think it's also having people at the forefront that are passionate about the same thing. So when we're speaking to the talent, for example, about your business, well, our business is also reflective of the things that you're passionate about. So we're all moving in that same positive direction. So I think the CSR piece is really important, whether that's giving back into the sectors, looking at the green elements within the sector, looking at the carbon neutrality or even the carbon positive footprint, those elements, and really talking about that to attract the right talent as well. I think because I'm in an inclusion space as well, within the renewable space, there's a lot of tick boxing and there's a lot of talk, but it's kind of like, there's that going deeper, well, what are you actually doing and what does that mean and what impact have you had? And those are the kind of questions that I think candidates should be asking companies, and actually companies should be asking their suppliers, to be honest with you, because we all need to be accountable. And I'm passionate about, as you can see, I'm passionate about that.
Apart from anything else, it makes work more natural and more fun. So, for example, in our leadership team, there's 3 ladies, each of whom have children under the age of 5. And I was with one of them, my CFO, in a meeting with my chairman yesterday evening. And we were on screen and her little one was in the background. And this is all just normal now. And it wasn't normal 10 years ago. And it just means that there's an opportunity for talented people to do the jobs that they want to do in a way that there wasn't before.
Yeah. And this goes back to connection and it goes to authenticity. A new stat that I learned was that the highest frequency of energy that we have, it isn't love. I was like, oh, it's love. It's authenticity and it's connecting. And actually in having that, and I know what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. We see some things and we're like, yeah, that's probably not appropriate for the workplace. And then, of course, there's some elements, as you've just described, that actually there's a human. We can all kind of connect with elements of that. And it sort of is a human. You work together, you collaborate, and you understand each other more. And that's a beautiful workplace culture.
That's the way it needs to be.
I agree.
We mentioned in our intro that you're on The Apprentice, so we can't not discuss this. What made you go on to The Apprentice?
I never thought that I would be going on to The Apprentice, to be honest with you. And I'd obviously seen it over the years and, we watched them and I think we've all been there and thought, I can do that better than that person, right? Am I right in what I'm saying? Right. Thank you. And I say that in a very humble way. You're looking like, why on earth are you doing that if I was doing that? Right. And I was sitting, I'd just launched Harper Fox Partners. I'd had it for about 2 years. I was at my kitchen table. I say my kitchen table, it was a table that's in my living room because the kitchen wasn't big enough for the table, but it was at a dining table in the living room. And I was on my laptop and it was about probably 20 to 11 at night. And I had the TV on in the background and I was working and I saw Lord Sugar come up and he does his, his infamous points, which I'm delighted to say he doesn't do in board meetings with me. And and he was like, if you think you're good enough or whatever, apply now. And I thought, oh, I've actually got a business now, because before it was always the business partner. And I was like, actually, I've got a business. And I was like, maybe I should just apply. I don't know what on earth made me think I'd just apply. And I did it. And I did it just there on the spot. I just applied quickly. The deadline was 11 o'clock. So I had about 15 minutes. Yeah, I just applied really quick. And I got round to the next round of auditions. And I thought, oh, God, this is fun. This is a great challenge. This is good fun. Next round. It was quite a long process and got to the point where they were like, yeah, we'd really want you to come onto the show. And I was like, oh, my goodness. It would mean leaving my children for 8 weeks. So I'd never left my children, 2 daughters, me and them going through all of this stuff together. And their father was actually in prison. So he'd been in prison for nearly a decade. And it was whether I was going to be able to do the show. There needed to be conversations because they didn't want any issues with their father. So there was conversations that had to be had between the show and the system to enable me to do it. And because of that, and I've got a background of domestic abuse, I was absolutely, if I was going to be able to do it, which I did it. I'm so grateful for all of that, because had that have not been the case, to be honest with you, I don't know that I would have actually done it. But because I sort of couldn't, then I was like, then I could, then I did.
Yeah.
And so you put heart and soul into it.
Put heart and soul into it. And it was been a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant process. And then got investment on the back of it, which has enabled me to scale the business. And to be honest with you, would I have just worked alone with a couple of researchers like I was? Maybe, but all of a sudden you've got this pressure. I've got investors. You've got people expecting you to do things, and you're like, wow, okay, I better scale the business. And I've honestly loved every single moment of it.
That's a remarkable story on lots of levels, both personally and professionally. And congratulations.
And lots of doors have opened as a result, and well deserved, it sounds like. So
thank you. I'm really passionate about being the change. I sort of worked in recruitment industries for a long time, and I was a young mum, and I had both my girls young. I was in supported accommodation. I've done all that life. And thought, can I be the CEO of this big business? And I sort of had that going on in the background. But my reality was I was a top performer across the UK and Europe as well. And that's why I'm passionate about bringing your authentic self and being open and transparent if you want to be. There's something really beautiful in that, actually. And I sort of asked myself that question, went out into the sectors I was working in, saw the same thing. And I was like, hold on, can someone like me with my circumstances be at the top of these businesses? Because I'm so ambitious.
Yeah.
I want these opportunities for me, and I want these opportunities for my daughter, young women of colour. And I thought, right, I want to make sure that if that's the case, and I'm going to build a business that's really focused around purpose as well as just doing great things. And that has been the reason as to why I set it up. And the Apprentice has enabled me to probably vocalise that as well. So I'm very grateful to it, the journey, actually, on so many levels, not just because of the show and not because of Lord Sugar. We're grateful for your investment, Sugar, but actually for those elements, to being able to really step into those kind of conversations and arenas.
And it just shows, yes, you can. You can be an amazing mother, but also a powerful, super successful businesswoman at the same time. It just needs the belief and the passion behind it. Yeah.
Great role model.
Yeah, thank you.
So obviously the big theme behind The Apprentice is entrepreneurship and trying to find that entrepreneur that can be the apprentice. You must have worked with lots of entrepreneurs on the show and since. So maybe you could tell us what you think really makes an entrepreneur succeed.
I'm a massive advocate of gritty determination. Right. So if you're going to explore this entrepreneurship life, within business, I think it's a little bit different, but a sole entrepreneurship life, it's a 24/7 job. That's the reality. It's non-stop. And there's a certain kind of gritty determination. I'll say it to my daughter. I think somebody that maybe colours a little bit outside of the lines, somebody that questions the system a little bit more. I don't mind that my daughters get into trouble a little bit at school. I know I shouldn't say that and I shouldn't advocate that. And I want to be clear, they're absolute priority. But actually, as I always say to them, it shows me leadership skills. It shows me entrepreneurship, because actually they're pushing the boundaries a little bit. Now, there's an appropriate way to do that. I want to be clear. I know that. But actually, some of the best entrepreneurs are the ones that do push the boundaries a bit. And within business, where we see it within intrapreneurship, I think it's the same thing in the right way. Those people that challenge and they push, again, in the right way. But that is what is needed.
Great answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Scarlett, for joining us on Next Time Around. It's been great to have you here. We've really enjoyed discussing the changing landscape of energy recruitment and sustainable working, and we hope it's given our listeners something to think about.
Thank you so much, both of you. I've absolutely loved it. Really excited to listen to this episode and all of them, actually.
And that brings us to the end of the show. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn by searching Powerverse, or share it with someone who might find it helpful. To find out more about our software, visit our website www.powerverse.com. Thanks for listening to Next Time Around. Until next time.